Week 12 of the fantasy football season. Here's the top 20 quarterbacks I'm ranking this week. Number 1, Jayln Herz of the Philadelphia Eagles. So Hertz, he's been on some run over the last month of the year, and this Eagle team's really playing great football. When you got A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert all back in the lineup over the last few weeks here, you're going to put up points. And this week in a matchup at the Los Angeles Rams where their defense isn't all that great, I think Hertz could go out there once again, have a big game this week in a potential high-scoring game on Sunday night. Number 2, Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar, he had a down week last week. Tough loss at the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he's still an MVP candidate. He's having a great season, and we rarely see Lamar have 2 bad games in a row. So this week at the Chargers, a defense that got torn up last week by the Cincinnati Bengals offense, I think this is going to be a high-scoring game in the hardball bowl between the two brothers on Monday Night Football. And Lamar Jackson, for the most part, like I said, after a bad game, he comes out with a big performance. Number 3, Jayden Daniels of the Washington Commanders. So Daniels, it's been a solid rookie year for him, but no doubt about it, his numbers have dropped off over the last month ever since he got that rib injury as Jayden Daniels. But this week is a good matchup versus the Dallas Cowboys. They can't stop anyone at all season long. Even, let's say, if DeRon Bland returned to the lineup, I don't believe it's going to make a difference at all. So Jayden Daniels, him and Terry McLaurin locked in. Zach Ertz having a good season. Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler out of the backfield. So this week, I think the Commanders put up one of the better offensive performances in a while. Number 4, Jordan Love of the Green Bay Packers. So Love, we know he's got that gunslinger mentality, getting the football down the field and making big plays. And it's a good receiver room over there, obviously in Green Bay. Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Tavian Wicks, and then at tight end, you got Tucker Kraft. So this week in a matchup versus the 49ers, they know they got to put points on the board, is Green Bay. And like I said, they're going to go out there, I believe, put points on the board. And Love's getting healthier. We know he was hurt early in the season for a little bit. Then that groin acted up. But that bye week in Week 10 definitely helped this Green Bay Packer team, I believe. And last week, Love, he had a mediocre game. But this week, I think versus the Niners, in a big game with a wild card spot on the line, even though we know we got a few weeks left, I think Love goes out there and has a good game. Number 5, Patrick Mahomes, so the Kansas City Chiefs. I know Mahomes, it's been a bad year for him, no doubt about it. But this week, a slam dunk matchup at the Carolina Panthers. I mean, Mahomes knows he's got to play better. I know this Chief team, they're 9-1, but for the most part, they've squeaked out a lot of ball games. So this week in Carolina, a defense that can't stop anyone. And this offense is getting as healthy as it could be, with Pacheco most likely returning this week. We know Rice and Brown out for the season, but now all the guys are back that they need is this Kansas City Chief team. And after a bad loss, we usually see Patrick Mahomes go out there, have a bounce-back performance. Number 6, Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions, the best offense in pro football, in my opinion. Last week, he went out there, he had a monster game, 412 passing, 4 touchdowns. And when you got great weapons like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, who's back, who could turn any catch into a touchdown with his breakaway speed, and now Sam Laporta, hopefully back in this game. It's a good matchup as well on the fast track in Indianapolis. I'm not saying Goff's going to put up a monster game like he did last week, but hey, 250, 300 yards and 2 touchdowns is definitely a possibility with this offense. Number 7, Bo Nix of the Denver Broncos. So maybe I'm higher on Nix than other people, but to be honest, I was down on Nix for a little bit. But now, the last few weeks, he's definitely gone out there and he's been one of the more serviceable and honestly consistent quarterbacks in terms of putting up points. His floor has pretty much been 18 fantasy points over the last month of the season. So last week, he went out there, had a monster game versus the Atlanta Falcons, 300 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. And this week, a slam dunk matchup indoors at the Vegas Raiders, where they can't stop anybody all season long. So Bo Nix, he's starting to get more people involved. We know he's got the running ability as well to put up some rushing yards for fantasy owners. And this week, I just like Nix a lot. Number 8, Kyler Murray of the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray in this Cardinal team, first place in the NFC West. Murray, we know he's got the running ability, and they got some weapons, obviously, in this offense. Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison, James Conner out of the backfield. And this week in a matchup at Seattle, where their secondary has been a problem all season long, I think Murray could go in there once again and put up some decent numbers. Number 9, Baker Mayfield of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Baker Mayfield looks like he's getting a reinforcement back, and a big one, obviously, in Mike Evans, who's one of the best receivers in the league, a big target. And Mike Evans, he could run all the routes, he could burn any secondary. And this week, it's a great matchup at the Giants that can't stop anyone. We saw Bryce Young and the Panthers go up and down the field versus Giants in their last ball game in Week 10. So with Mike Evans back and Cade Otton really emerging as one of the better tight ends in the league this season, I think Baker Mayfield's going to put up those solid numbers this week. Number 10, Brock Purdy of the San Francisco 49ers. So he's banged up with a shoulder injury as Brock Purdy. But like I said early in the video, this is a big game for a wild card spot at Lambeau Field between these two teams. So Purdy, they got great weapons, Deebo Samuel, Jawan Jennings. To be honest, I think he's better than Brandon Ayuk this season overall. So Ayuk being out for the year, I don't think is a big loss. McCaffrey's been back the last 2 games. He's looked right. And now if they get Kittle back in this lineup as well, this offense really could take off. So this week in a potential high-scoring game at Green Bay, I think Purdy, even not at 100%, could still go out there and put up some points. Number 11, C.J. Stroud of the Houston Texans. So C.J. Stroud, it hasn't been a great year for him, but obviously a lot of injuries. Nico Collins, he missed a month of the season. Stephon Diggs, he's been out for a little bit now. He's out for the year with torn ACL, but now this offense is back to where it was last season in terms of the passing game with Collins, Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz, and to have Joe Mixon in the backfield this season has been a big boost for this Texan offense. So this week a matchup versus division foe, the Tennessee Titans. I think C.J. Stroud, he's going to go out there. We know he's going to get the passing yards. Just the problem with him is getting that touchdown. And last week, like I said, he had the passing yards, but he didn't get the touchdown versus the Dallas Cowboys. But the last few weeks, his rushing numbers have gone up just a bit, which is good. 12, Justin Herbert of the Los Angeles Chargers. So Herbert, he's getting comfortable in this offense now, where it was a big turnaround from last season to this year. The personnel, Keenan Allen, they had Mike Williams, Gerald Everett, Austin Eckler in the backfield. And this season, it's a whole new core. Ladd McConkey drafted, Quentin Johnson moved up the depth chart in the lineup. Will Disley a tight end, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards in the backfield. So it takes time for a quarterback to get rapport with all the new targets in the offense. The last couple weeks, though, these guys have been playing good football. Him and the new personnel have been on the same page over the last 2-3 weeks here. And this week in a potential high-scoring game with Baltimore coming to town, I think Herbert could go out there. He can make plays, put points on the board. And I've said this a lot. He's a top 5 talent at the quarterback position, I believe, is Herbert. And now it's definitely showing that he's getting it down with his playmakers. 13, Tua of the Miami Dolphins. So Tua, it's been a decent return for him over the last month of the season. He's not having eye-popping numbers, but definitely a good quarterback who's been very serviceable. So this offense is starting to roll over the last few weeks. They've scored 23 or more points in the games he's returned this to. And last week they had a big ball game where he was spreading that football out and everyone got involved versus the Raiders. Devon Achane out of the backfield had a touchdown. Jonnu Smith, a big game, over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Tyreek found the end zone. So everyone's getting involved in this offense. The only player not doing much is Jalen Waddle, but Jonnu Smith right now looking like he took that number 2 spot in the passing game for this Dolphin team. And this week it's a good matchup versus secondary of the Patriots that really haven't stopped anyone all season long. 14, Sam Darnold of the Minnesota Vikings. So this week, this is a shaky type of matchup in a way, where my start-sit video I had Darnold as a borderline option. That's exactly what he is, in my opinion. So this Bear defense, they're a good unit, no doubt about it. Quarterbacks have had tough times versus the Bears this season, but Sam Darnold's got the good weapons. Justin Jefferson, T.J. Hawkinson, obviously Jordan Addison. We'll see if he plays in this game. He's banged up. And then Aaron Jones out of the backfield. So this week at Chicago, I think it's going to be a grinded-out division ball game in the NFC North between these two teams. But like I said, with those weapons, I think Sam Darnold's going to find his way in this ball game and put up serviceable numbers. 15, Geno Smith of the Seattle Seahawks. So believe it or not, this Cardinal defense has played well over the last month of the season. And like I said, they're the first place in the NFC West. But Geno Smith has great weapons. DK Metcalf's back in the lineup. Jackson Smith-Njigba, the last few weeks, he's really taken off and put up numbers for the Seattle Seahawks team. And this week could be a potential high-scoring game. But the thing is, this running game is a big part of this offense where Kenneth Walker, we've seen it this season, where he's getting touchdowns, he's getting a lot of yards. And at times, this team, they don't obviously punch it in the end zone with Geno at quarterback, where it's field goal settling as well. So this week versus Arizona, like I said, their defense has played well when they're coming off a bye. It's going to be tough for Geno to put up, I think, more than 20 points in this one. Team Matthew Stafford of the Los Angeles Chargers. Last week, Stafford, he went out there over 30 fantasy points, 4 touchdowns on the board. And when you got wide receivers like Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, it makes your job easier, no doubt about it. But this week, a tougher matchup versus the Eagles, where their secondary is shutting down elite receivers pretty much the whole season. So this week, I think it's going to be a little bit tough of a ball game here for Matthew Stafford. We saw a few weeks ago Miami come into Los Angeles and shut down the offense for the majority of the game. So this week with a tougher matchup, even though I could see put points on the board between both teams, I just don't think the ceiling is that high for Stafford this week. 17, Russell Wilson of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Russell Wilson, some weeks he's going to have good games, and some weeks you're going to see games like last week with the defense in the running game. And obviously Chris Boswell put points on the board for Pittsburgh where he had 6 field goals. So Wilson, this week a decent matchup with Cleveland. But this Brown defense, for the most part, they played good football versus Pittsburgh over the last few seasons where these are grinded out type of field goal performances. So this week, I know it's Thursday night game, high scoring games usually, but I don't see Wilson going out there and putting up elite numbers, and another guy where his ceiling just isn't high. In my opinion, 18, Jameis Winston staying in the same game of the Cleveland Browns. So Winston, he went out there last week and he went for 395 and 2 touchdowns. So we know he's the ultimate gunslinger, a guy who's going to toss up a lot of 50-50 balls, but he's going to get yards most week. About him not throwing a lot of interceptions in a game, and those interceptions, some of them being touchdowns. So this week versus Pittsburgh, we know he's going to air it out. Once again, it's Jameis Winston. They got good options, obviously. Jerry Jeudy's been good this year. Cedric Tillman, Elijah Moore, David Njoku. So that's a decent receiving room and a good tight end in Njoku for this Cleveland Brown team. So I think Winston could go out there even in a tougher matchup and be a solid number 2 quarterback in 2 quarterback leagues. This week, 19, Drake May. The New England Patriots of Drake May. It's been a decent rookie year for him in the games we've seen him start. I know the weapons are limited. Hunter Henry, Demario Douglas in the offense for this New England Patriot team. But Drake May's got some wheels as well. We've seen a few weeks ago he ran for 95 yards. So this week in a matchup in Miami where I think they could put some points on the board is this New England Patriot team. I just don't think the ceiling's high. Like I said, Demario Douglas, Hunter Henry, your top 2 options in the passing game. It's not really going to get you that far, in my opinion. And Ramondre Stevenson's been a solid back in the backfield as well. So I think Drake May is a 2 quarterback option. Could be decent for owners this week in the 20th and final quarterback on rankings. Anthony Richardson of the Indianapolis Colts. So Richardson, he returned to the lineup last week, and he had possibly his best game of his NFL career where he threw for 272 yards in that one. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. And Richardson, we know he's an athlete. We know he's got a big arm. But the thing is, he's just not accurate as Richardson, and a lot of erratic throws. And sometimes he takes a lot of big hits, what's cost him a lot of games. And so far, injuries throughout his early career, only in his second season. And this week in a matchup versus the Lions coming to town, where most likely the Lions are going to get up to a 10, 14-point lead, and they got to play catch-up. I think it's going to be a tough sledding type of game for Richardson. I know last week it was the Jets. He had a nice game-winning drive, no doubt about it. But this week it's a tough matchup, like I said, versus the Lions, and I don't think the ceiling's that high as well. So that's the top 20 quarterbacks I'm ranking for Week 12 of the fantasy football season.